Welcome to Cigar City Radio, episode number 22. I'm your host, Randy Ojeda, and making the magic happen, Mr. Jason Solanes.
You know, Randy, every once in a while I like to take...
God, just stop. Just stop. Just please stop.
If you don't know, now you know, Cuban.
What? And also Michelle.
I have nothing to say to that.
you never have. When you hang out with us, there's a lot of.
What can I say?
You know.
I leave the ladies speechless.
Moving on. If you love Cigar City Radio, and we really hope that you do, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We encourage you to leave a review in the iTunes store and share the show with your friends. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Cigar City Radio, and you can email us at cigarcityradio@gmail.com.
This episode of Cigar City Radio was recorded at the Blind Tiger in Ybor City. The Blind Tiger is a 1920s speakeasy-style coffee shop serving coffee, tea, vegan pastries, and more, with locations in Ybor City and Seminole Heights. You can check them out at blindtigercafe.com.
Next week is our first ever Noche Buena party taking place during South by Southwest with 15 bands. 15 bands, Jason. You can't even name them all. I know you can't, so let's move on. Hey, Tina, you want to name these bands for us?
Hockey Dad, Detective, High Wasted, Sand Medicine, Jackson Boone and the Ocean Ghosts, Undercover Dream Lovers, Dirty Dishes, Warbly Jets, Field Trip, Shark Muffin, Fruit and Flowers, Mail the Horse, Plastic Pinks, Veiny Hands.
And when's that happening, Jason?
That's happening on March 15th.
You gotta be more excited about it than that.
That's happening on March 15th at Stay Gold in Austin, Texas. The doors are at 3 p.m. and it ends at 2 a.m. If you're under 21, we will kick your asses out.
Hey, and Jason, do I have to have like one of those like $1,500 badges to get in?
Nah, bruh.
Oh, how much does it cost to get in?
It's for free.
It's free?
It's for free.
15 bands for free?
Show me your goddamn ID and I'll let you in.
Okay, it's free for 21 and up.
21 and up. If you're
There
under
it
21,
is. There it is.
it's still free to get your ass kicked out.
Oh man, so it is indeed the night your abuela has been waiting for. Search Noche Buena Party South by Southwest on Facebook events or RSVP at cigarcitymanagement.com/SXSW.
Our guest on this episode is singer-songwriter Amy Ray, one half of the legendary folk duo Indigo Girls and the founder of Damon Records. A total badass, Amy is a world-renowned artist who has countless albums in varying genres ranging in country, punk, and folk. She's collaborated with Justin Vernon, aka Bon Iver, and considers him a good friend. We had a blast talking with her, and we wish we could have hung out longer. And we also hope that she returns to Cigar City Radio sometime soon.
So here it is, episode 22. I'm assuming you've played here quite a few times.
With Indigos.
You've never played solo here?
No.
Wow.
No. Not at this place. Maybe somewhere else in the past.
In the area, but...
Because, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe it took Tampa so long to get you.
I think I might have played here with my punk band a couple of times, but this is my country band, so it might be different.
Right on.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know you had a punk band. I feel awful for not knowing that.
Maybe I started making records in 2001, like solo records, and the first 4 were more like punk and rock.
Yeah, like I know, like Stag was pretty.
Yeah, so that
pretty
was
punk,
so I would play with the Butchies, and that was like the punk thing.
Yeah, the Butchies were super cool.
Yeah, so we did that for years, and then I went to country.
Right on.
In the like a few years ago,
Yeah, that's
because
awesome.
it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, it is. Real country and
Three
real
chords.
punk,
Yeah.
are the same thing.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and that's what I always loved about Indigo Girls. You know, is like Emily, I think, brought that like sort of sweetness to the mix. You know,
Yeah.
But all your stuff was, I felt like all your stuff in particular was harder edged, more badass. you
Yeah, we
know?
sort of
Like,
have like a complementary thing, I guess, in some way.
Yeah.
Although when she's on the electric guitar, she's pretty badass.
Oh no, she's definitely badass too.
Yeah.
You're two very badass women, that's for sure. So there's actually that Spotify playlist that I don't know if I'm sure Michelle, you're all about it. The badass women.
Is that a Spotify playlist?
It is. It's incredible,
Wow,
and it's
I've
a
never listened to
variety of
that one.
genres. It's insane, but they update it all the time, and it's my
Really?
go-to playlist.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But see, like I feel like most of those bands probably wouldn't even be on that playlist if it wasn't for Indigo Girls. You
Really?
know? Like I feel like you've inspired so many like amazing, like a generation of amazing artists now.
Oh, that's sweet to say that.
You don't think that?
I mean, it's all mutual, collaborative.
Yeah. I mean, it's
synchronicity kind of thing.
Yeah, art evolves over time.
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
too.
yeah.
But I know you definitely like. I don't want to use the term like kind of broke down barriers, but you know, it's
You had
like,
a hand in it.
Yeah, you definitely
had a hand
did
in it.
something for badass women in rock and roll. You know?
Good.
So thank you for that.
They did. I'm sure there's a lot of people that did a lot for us too. So
Yeah.
think about that. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, you first record was what 1981, 1982.
Our first, we started playing in '80, but we didn't start making records till '85. We were like in high school in 1980 and like 16 years old. We were just playing
And you met in high school,
elementary school.
elementary school. Wow,
Known each other since we were 10.
that's crazy.
I know. Yeah, and we're old now, so it's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool. And then you stayed in touch, obviously, through high school and college. And
Yeah, well, we played in high school and we played in college. And even though we went off to separate schools for a little while, we played on the weekends. We both had our own gigs too, and then in the summer we played. And we both ended up at Emory University in Atlanta and finished out there and played a lot. And that's when we really started like making records and playing and touring, kind of right at the end of college.
yeah.
And then just went from there to doing it. And then we got signed to a major label in '88,
Yeah.
and then kind of went from there.
And then it just explodes from there.
Yeah, I mean, like we were in a van for a long time, but like we got lucky. We hit like this portal of crazy, like college radio was ascendant,
Yeah.
and REM was helping us out, and everything kind of just happened like right at the right time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's, I mean, a big part of making it in music is, just
Luck.
happening at the right time.
Yep.
Being in the right room.
Yep.
You know?
It's like outliers. It's like sweat and luck.
Wow. But I have to think that somebody would have eventually heard you and said, all right, with this.
Maybe. I mean, we were not that. I mean, when we started, we were
Yeah.
we were young. I mean, we were young.
What
and
was the scene like back then in like the Atlanta, like Emory area?
it was sort of a mixture of like folk music and like left of the dial alternative rock, and punk was sort of, it was at the tail end of like what was considered like real punk.
Yeah.
And then there was, like an R&B scene and a jazz scene that were separate to some degree. Although there was a jazz scene in the area that we played in a lot. There was also kind of a jazz scene going on at the same time.
That's cool.
So but it was very DIY, and like everybody made cassettes and sold them at shows, and we all shared gigs. Like if you knew someone playing and you wanted to like that club to sort of notice you would go play during their break. Like Driving and Crying let us come to Athens and play like during their break or something, or open for them once to get us like in the door. So that's what bands did for each other back then, is they shared gigs, or you would go play during someone's break if they were playing like a hotel lounge, and you wanted a gig there, whatever, like whatever
cool.
it took. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that, because there's still definitely a lot of that DIY spirit in music now. I feel like that's kind of one of the few ways to really do it these days. So it's cool to know that things haven't really changed that much.
It's like it's like a little bit of full circle in a way, because I think that time period was special, and there was a real sort of philosophy of DIY and punk, kind of that punk philosophy left over, and then college radio sort of became less independent, and independent stores became less. Everything became less independent. Like around '96, when the Telecommunications Act was signed, everything sort of started shifting, and we sort of had the best of that world, and then we had the best of. Really, we had a pretty good major label experience too.
I guess comparatively, some people have terrible major label experiences.
We sort of just did what we did.
Yeah,
and it was what it was for a while, and then it ran its course, and we could tell they weren't really into us anymore, so we hopped off.
And you started your own label after that.
Yeah, and so it's and I think that's kind of it's like this thing now where that's certain kinds of music. That's really the way to do sometimes it. It's the way to do it. Although there's still some great indie labels. I mean, Merge is a fantastic label, Barsuk and Sub Pop and
4AD is great.
There's so many great indies still. So it's not like labels are obsolete.
Yeah. I feel like they've just had to be more nimble and kind of specialize in a certain focus or certain genre or something. Yeah. You know.
And usually you have to work with bands that are really willing to like be motivated.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest thing is like we manage bands and we always,
you know that.
Yeah, so we look for bands that are like ready to hit the road and really like, I mean, it's a grind, you know. And sometimes you're playing for very little money in front of a, half empty house, but that's what you got to do when you're getting started with music.
It really is. And it's what I'm doing that now. And, like with my solo stuff.
Well, I hope you're not playing to half-empty houses.
But, like I'll play
I guess it happens,
I'll play in Gainesville, and there'll be 75 people there. And then I'll go play, but I'll play in, New York, and there's 500. It just depends on, how it is. It's just scene, whatever the city is, it changes. But it's like you have to be willing to play to the small crowds, too, because, you could... That's the thing about social media now, too, is that you can play to 15 people, but if you film it or stream it or... do something creative with it, it reaches more people.
Yeah, that's true.
So you make the most of whatever you're doing. And then also the word spreads if people have a good show. Yeah. And you got to do it because you love it. So
that's the other part of it. Yeah. You have to love it. That's key. Because if you don't love music, you're in the wrong business.
For sure.
But that is really cool. And it does make sense too, like in today's day and age, it's like everything's so digital and things are so... We're so connected, but also so disconnected that like actually being at a show and getting that real experience with a crowd is like what people almost crave, that sort of intimacy with artists these days. It's,
Yeah, I don't think that's changed. I mean, I think people thought for a while, maybe we can just make videos for YouTube. And, like I think everybody always at some point gets demoralized when they're starting by the reality of the road, and it's hard. And so it's like, maybe we can bypass this and make videos or this or that. But it's like, truly, like you have to, it's kind of like you got to pay your dues no matter what. I mean, everybody does. Even Justin Bieber paid his dues, probably.
Sure, in a way, yeah.
I mean, whether you like him or not. You know what I'm saying? You paid him in some way.
So surviving the rigors on the road, especially with people that you've been so close with for so long, is there any kind of advice that you can give people that are currently on the road that would keep them glued together instead of imploding like so many bands do?
It's hard. It's hard when you're like Emily and I. It was easier because we were just two people at first when we were young, so we could ride around in a small car and share a room, and one of us could sleep in the bathroom if we were sick of each other, which is what we did a lot of times. But I don't know. I'm with we're 6 people right now, like with my solo stuff in a van. And one thing that's helpful is that we rotate, like who gets their own room kind of thing, or we try to just, I don't know, you just have to take space,
help each other out with personal liberties.
And I also think like just always remember to respect each other, and it's a team, and kind of help where you can, and don't just load your own gear, like help load someone else's gear too. Like if you're playing a trumpet, and don't just take it out of the case and you're done. Like, go help the drummer out. Yeah. Exactly. Always help the drummer. But it is hard with a lot of people, and when you're young, because it's kind of, there's not a lot of space. It's true. I talked to a lot of young bands that talk about that. So I don't really, bands that I know that are like the Shadow Boxers, like this bands that we're friends with that are really great, and it's like 5 or 6 of them, depending on who's with them, and they do things like stop at a park and go for the day, hang out in their own space for the day or whatever,
Be friends. Just be friends.
Well, they're actually friends too. But
that helps.
But even friends get sick of each other.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah. But if you're on the road that much and smashed together, I'd imagine tension and heated arguments.
I mean, Emily and I had a really good curve that was kind of a lucky thing where we didn't mind being smushed together, and we also just would bring our friends with us too, so that we have an audience basically. It's like take 5 people with you in case no one shows up, kind of thing. And it was a party all the time. Like it was fun. It was like it's like it's supposed to be fun. This is not supposed to be a grind, but it does get to be a grind later, or when you're trying to drive 10 hours and get to your gig in time or whatever. So there's just enjoy the moments when it's not, and when it is a grind, have a work ethic about it and be proud of yourself because the process is just as important as the gig. Really, it's to me anyway. But what do I know? But
if you have a bad time getting to the gig, you're probably gonna have a bad time at the gig.
That's probably true. Actually, that's a really good point. Note to self. I mean, I can be a control freak and order just kind of get upset with the band if they're not there in time or this or that, and I just try to tell myself it's pointless.
Yeah.
Like you love these people, you're traveling with them.
You're making music with them.
Yeah. It's a conversation and it's not just on stage. It's also happening off stage. Yeah. Cool. But with them, but I have to say, like, if you're with the same person playing for a really, really long time, like me and Emily, have known each other for 40 years now, and it's just like it's a marriage, and you just have to you have to just constantly let the other person have their own space and constantly and respect each other and have communication. And I got lucky, Yeah. I mean, it's just I got lucky, so
that's the theme.
Sorry,
that's all right.
It all comes down to luck.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
but that's great. So I'm just amazed too at your longevity. Like, it's so hard to keep making music for as long as you've been making music, and like a prolific amount of albums, and everyone just keeps getting it keeps changing and evolving. Like you said, now you're kind of moving into country. Or are you country?
I mean, I'm country, but we made a really traditional country record. My solo band, I mean, Emily and I made a record a couple of years ago that was an Indigo Girl record, but it was very layered and ambient and kind of probably influenced by our devotion to Justin Vernon. But then I went into this country thing for myself just because I like traditional country music and I met the right players. But now I'm sort of like writing Southern rock, punky country songs. So it's whatever. It's like, it's all songwriting. I mean, I had an indie label and I still have it for a long time. And my only thing was I put out about 60 records and I was like, I don't care what kind of, I love all kinds of music and it's all about songwriting to me. Yeah. No matter what you're doing. I mean, hip hop, jazz, anything. It's got to be the lyrics and the hooks and the melody, the pacing. It's whatever kind of music you're playing.
Yeah, and you mentioned Justin Vernon. That's Bon Iver, right?
Yeah.
I know you had a couple songs with him on your last record.
Yeah,
right?
he sang and played on 4 songs.
I've actually read that he's a massive Indigo Girls fan. Is that true?
It's his mom. It's his mom's fault.
Really?
It's always there's always a mom or a sister in the equation.
It's
I love
interesting
it.
to hear you say fault.
My mom brought me to the first shows when he told it. No, he's actually he's kind of he's a cool guy. He unabashedly likes music by women. That y'all are probably in his same that age group. It's different from our generation where a lot of guys were afraid to say they liked, whoever, us or whoever, Tracy Chapman, I don't know, you have these guys who would be like, I'm a closet Indigo fan. And when you get to Justin's generation, I know a lot of guys in that generation. I know a lot of his friends, his little tribe that he hangs out with. And they have no sense of demographic barriers, which is so great. And that's why the music's so good.
Sure.
That all those folks that play the Eau Claire Fest and all that, just that sort of arena that Justin's in, that music it blows my mind how creative it is.
Yeah.
It's like the vulnerability in their music is tied to the influence of women and female vocalists or female songwriters, and that's not a bad thing. I think people might think vulnerability means weak, but it's just it's that opening that you get when you actually attach yourself to a more maternal or feminine kind of thing. So acknowledging that these are influences for you, you can then tap into that and create the vulnerable music that we get from Bon Iver or James Blake or somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and the generation and younger are not afraid to be open to different kinds of music, and they're not like, well, we can't like that because it's not in our demographic or something. And that's what the marketers don't know yet.
I think that's the thing.
They need to, they'll figure it out at some point, but it's the private thing that we know.
Yeah.
I
guess I've never really thought about it that way, because it does seem like, sometimes I feel like I'm one of those, get off my lawn type guys, even though I'm not that old. Like I see the younger like kids on Snapchat, and I'm like, what are you doing? But I guess I have to hand it to the next generation. At least they're open about things.
Even if they are skateboarding on your lawn.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want that. but it's cool that I see that a lot of people now are into a wider range of, or willing to be into a wider range of.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a hipster scene. Like, there's no doubt. Like, I saw in Gainesville last night, I saw the crowd turn over between our show and David Bazan, and I was like, all right, healthy word to my ego, which was like this whole like hipster crowd moved in, and all the other ones left, and I was like, all right, we're not hipster, that's okay, But it was cute. It's like still, so it still exists, but I do think like. But like my niece, she's like 19, I think now. She's like, her and her boyfriend. It wouldn't even occur to them to think about gender and sexuality and stuff when the music they're listening to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's. I guess it's something that's never really even occurred to me either. Like, it's not something I thought of. Like, we just started managing a band called Fruit and Flowers. That's a female fronted band from Brooklyn. They're awesome, by the way.
From Brooklyn.
Yeah, very cool.
Very good.
All right.
Awesome band. You should check them out.
Okay.
I'll send you their stuff.
Okay.
But I know, like, we had a bunch of conversations with them about management and working with them and everything, and it wasn't until like, I think we had already been managing them a couple months that we first had the conversation about like, oh, by the way, you're women playing music, we should probably talk about that. Like, and I remember Anna from the band saying like how refreshing it was to like not even really be a topic of conversation until it was needed for
that is reason. Refreshing.
There should be no pretense about a woman being a woman. You're a fucking human being. You don't exist as sex.
That's great.
Yeah. But it was like, but it's true. Like, I never had thought of it as like, oh yeah, they're a female fronted band that's like,
I mean, it should be an asset. Anything that makes any part of your otherness, no matter what you are, should be considered your asset and not a drawback. I mean, to anybody. Yeah. Like, that's the problem, is that it's not the problem that you identify as a person of color or a gay person playing music or this or that or whatever. It's that it's derogatory rather than like, how cool this is. You know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for anything at any point in history that has an otherness to them,
That's very true. And I think with music, I'm always just like, well, they'll hear the music and they'll figure it out, if it's relevant.
Or they'll relate to it. Like, when I think about like listening to David Cassidy when I was in 4th grade, and he was my, I just, like, I related to him on, it didn't have to, it doesn't, I could relate to him the way I related to Cher or whatever. It was not like, oh, I can't listen to that because it's a man, I have to only listen to women.
Yeah.
Or I have to only listen to guys or something. And I think for a while radio made us think that way in some way. Maybe you don't agree, but.
No, I mean, there is definitely that issue. Yeah, I don't have that experience because I was sat down in front of MTV, watched whatever was on there.
Yeah.
So, or my parents just always had music playing, so I didn't differentiate between, oh, this is a female-fronted band, or this is a woman, or this is an all-male band, or whatever. So, like, the biggest influence for me growing up in the 90s is grunge, and that's a very heavily male, genre, but there's so many prominent female artists that come out of that too. And so, I can pull from that and be like, oh, those were, my idols or whatever. But it wasn't because they were a female, or it wasn't because it was a guy or whatever. But I think, marketing or the radio or even MTV or something, music videos, they will do that. And they'll steer you to maybe decide to like something.
Or it's what or they'll expose, or they're the gatekeepers. And so what you're seeing is 90% male videos and
or the way that they'll label it too, and it'll be like top 10 female rock stars or something. You have to like have a label to it to be like, oh yeah, that's right, they're women. I wouldn't have never known. Like
and it's not the band's fault. I mean, it's not like Nirvana wasn't a feminist
No,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's like, it's just the gatekeepers. And I think that's the beauty of what happens now, is that we're getting rid of those gatekeepers, and we're sort of with, obviously with podcast and blah, 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 and all the internet stuff,
Yeah, I think the one thing still, or I mean, I shouldn't say the one thing, because there's many things.
The only one.
Yeah, but one of the things is, like, sometimes you see, like, with festival lineups, you'll
yeah.
look at the headliners or the main, the big font bands, and it still seems to be a predominantly male.
It is.
Males that are, like, headlining.
Coachella is the one that's under the most, scrutiny for that, because what was the last, I think, female headliner before Beyonce, and even Beyonce was like kind of technically a second tier headliner this year, was I think Madonna of like 20 years ago, 10 maybe 15
How can
years
anyone
ago.
consider Beyonce second tier?
I know.
I know.
Like,
I feel like
always first tier.
I know, but it was like there was someone before her though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
so it's like
so she wasn't like the headline.
The headline. Yeah. So I mean, and now they have Lady Gaga replacing her. So yeah, you have somebody that's representing one day of that festival who is this extraordinary woman in pop music. But yeah, for years it's just been men or bands that are all men and maybe one woman or something. So that's a festival that 100% has abided to like that demographic or that split of sectioning off people by their sexes.
Yeah, and I wonder if they had women, like bands that had women in them or whatever, or they paid attention to that, the people that are curating it. I don't think it would mean people aren't going to come.
No,
So that's
All
what I
of a
mean.
sudden,
Like they're misreading.
They have to be in
feel
the smallest
they're
print.
misreading
Yeah,
their audience or something in some way.
yeah. I think
Because it's not like there's so many bands they could have.
could be anybody.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. That's still like definitely we came up in a time when it was like, this is our radio playlist, and we can have only like 2 female acts in this, and one of them can be gay.
Yeah.
So either the Melissa Etheridge or the Indigo Girls can be played, or Katie Lang.
Yeah.
That's like how they distilled it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
one on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Yeah, but you can't put them all together.
No way.
I had a question. Simply, it is Women's History Month, and I wanted to talk about Lilith Fair and your experience with that. Great transition. But we were talking about festivals, and we're talking about music and stuff. And for that being a women's festival per se, it was in '97 the top grossing touring festival, and I wanted to kind of ask you, what's your experience being a part of that, even the revival, going around and being a part of something that's curated to,
I mean, Lilith was awesome. Like, just, there's nothing, I can't. It was an amazing thing. It was super fun. It was like a summer camp.
Yeah,
and all your friends are there, and it wasn't. It's funny because it was women centered, but it was probably still more men on stage than women. That was the whole thing and more men crew too.
Yeah.
But they really focused on trying to get as many women in the bands and the crew as well. That was an important mission that Sarah had. So it was great. I mean, there was a backlash against it, afterwards.
Yeah.
Of course, there always is a backlash if it's
because we can't have nice things, right?
But the one thing I'll say that they learned, I think, was in race kind of issues.
Yeah,
was that there was kind of not a really strong effort. I think there was an effort, but it probably was misplaced to get like, the hip hop artist or the R&B artist. I mean, Erykah Badu played, and like some really great, amazing people played, but like, it was Michelle and Cello played, but it's like you always felt like they were slightly in the wrong position. Like, you have a hip hop show, but it's during the day.
Yeah,
it's like, make that the headline, because that's the dance and that it's a spectacle. It's not going to go off at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. So
I think like Missy Elliott, for instance, was put on first or something, and I think. And then it would be like, and then the audience was probably mostly white, but it's like, well, you have to learn how to advertise in the right areas. You have to make it accessible to the right, in the right way, ticket wise and travel wise. And so they really learned that you can't just try to integrate. There's so many things that have to be done logistically.
It should always be organic. It shouldn't feel like it's manufactured.
So that was something that I really noticed too. In the first couple of years, it was really struggling for that. And I remember Michelle saying to me, we were both had these dressing rooms that were like way in the back of the building. She said, well, yeah, of course I'm back here with the lesbians, the people of color in the lesbian hall. It made me, I mean, Sarah McLachlan's a good friend. So, but it really made me laugh because I was like, wow, you're totally right. Because at first everybody was kind of scared of us.
Yeah.
Like we would go knock on doors, let's jam. And everybody was like,
Yeah.
By the end of it, like by a few years had gone by, everyone was playing together. Everyone was jamming. No one was worried about whether the gay people were going to stand next to the straight people.
Yeah.
Like, there seriously was a thing about that at first.
Yeah, I mean,
it was nice. It was not
even being late 90s where it's semi-progressive. It's still a thing. Yeah, it's still.
I mean, Riot Girl was on this other space. Like that evolution of like really the true feminism was not. It was a different thing.
Yeah,
but this thing was important. Lilith was very important.
It's highly influential.
Very influential.
So yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask about that because I think it's
one of the best times I've ever had in my life. Honestly, I mean, seriously, I can't even tell you how fun it was.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I wish we could ask more. I know.
I'm sorry, I'm long-winded.
No, it's okay. Like
I've been in the band for 5 hours.
Yeah. Well, we've just been, we're just scratching the surface. So I'd love to have you on again. If anytime you come back through. I feel like we can definitely have a much longer conversation about all this, and your career is just astounding. So there's so much more to discuss.
Y'all are sweet. I'm just in the moment. Whatever. It's not astounding today.
Yeah.
But it's fun, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, that's the key. As long as it's fun.